Dear chosen ones, when you throw dirt on someone who's done nothing to you, don't be surprised when the universe plants that dirt back in your own garden and makes you eat what grows. Now, picture this for a moment. Chosen one, someone thinks they can keep poking a sleeping lion, laughing like it's just a game, until one day, the lion opens its eyes. That's exactly what's happening here. They treated you like a fire that could be flicked away with a little water, thinking they could smother your spirit. But they didn't put out the flame, they made it burn hotter. And now, that heat is curling back toward them in a way they never imagined. Here's something psychologists have confirmed. Those who intentionally harm or lie about others are often projecting their own guilt and insecurity. The more they try to hide it, the more it bleeds through their actions. And here's the spiritual truth. Karma isn't some vague, maybe someday idea. It's a chain reaction. Every action sets off a ripple, and those ripples always find their way back to shore. Right now, chosen one, that shoreline is their life, and the tide is coming in fast. Before we go any further, I want to thank every single one of you who has been walking with me on this journey. You are the heartbeat of this work. Some of you have even gone the extra step and shown love through super thanks. And I want you to know, whether you donate or not, I am deeply grateful for you. Your presence here, your comments, your shares, that's already a gift. This mission is not just mine, it's ours. Together, we spread the light they thought they could extinguish. Now, let's get back to what's unfolding. This isn't some small taste of justice. This is the kind of karma that keeps people awake at night, staring at the ceiling, replaying every choice they made. They thought they were clever, that gossip, petty actions, and calculated cruelty would break you. But they didn't understand who they were dealing with. You were not just another name they could drag. You were a soul the universe had quietly shielded, like a rare gem locked in a safe. While they were prying at that safe, they didn't realize there was a silent alarm wired straight to the highest spiritual authority. They mistook your silence for ignorance, your calm for indifference, your kindness for gullibility. But silence doesn't mean blind. Calm doesn't mean unaware. And kindness doesn't mean unprotected. Every time they tried to dim your light, they forgot the universe runs on balance. And when you take from someone who has done nothing to you, you create a debt, and debts, chosen one, always get collected, often with interest. That interest is hitting them now. Look at their lives. Plans crumbling, reputations slipping, circles shrinking, opportunities vanishing. The very energy they aimed at you is wrapping back around them like a boomerang they didn't see coming. Karma isn't always loud at first. Sometimes it moves quietly, precisely. Like a sniper's bullet, they never hear until it lands. And here's the part they didn't see coming. They didn't just set themselves up for this. They dragged others into it. Friends, family, even strangers who went along with their lies. Every single one who played a part is feeling the weight now. That's why this message is titled exactly as it is. Everybody involved is getting karma. Not one is escaping. And every single one of them is wishing they had just left you alone. As we go deeper, chosen one, remember this. You didn't need revenge. You didn't need to fight dirty. You didn't need to match their energy. The universe saw. It kept receipts. And now it's delivering a payment plan they can't dodge. So, let me ask you, are you ready to walk through this with me? Step by step. and see exactly how the universe is lining up the consequences for every single one who played a part. If you feel this truth already in your spirit, drop a 777-inch the comments. And if this message resonates with you, consider showing love to the team that brings you these words, whether through a super thanks, a share, or simply your presence here. Every form of support fuels this mission and helps us reach more souls who need to hear what others tried to silence. Take a deep breath. Settle in. Because if you've walked through the fire they put you through, you'll feel the pull to stay with me until the very last word. Let's begin. God's chosen ones. Karma has arrived and they wish they never touched you. Number 1. They thought you were prey, but you were the trap all along. Chosen one. They miscalculated you from the very start. They saw your quiet, your patience, your refusal to fight dirty, and assumed it was weakness. They thought they could pounce, take what was sacred to you, smear your name, and walk away untouched. But tell me what happens when someone tries to bury a seed instead of realizing it was meant to grow. What happens when they dig a hole, thinking it's your grave, but instead it becomes their own? That's exactly where they stand right now, staring into a pit they built with their own hands. Realizing too late, they're the ones about to fall. They thought you were a soft target, an easy game for their amusement. They underestimated the law you walk under. Touch not mine anointed, and do my prophets no harm. Psalm 105-15. What they didn't know was that every lie they whispered about you was a boomerang in motion. Every insult was an arrow they shot into the wind, only to have it return sharper, aimed at their own heart. Picture this. Chosen one. A burglar slips into what looks like an abandoned house. No lights, no noisy, no signs of life. They think they're safe, but hidden in the shadows are motion sensors, silent alarms, and cameras recording every step. Before they realize it, the authorities are on their way. That's exactly how it was when they entered your life, sneaky, confident, thinking there'd be no cost. They touched what wasn't theirs, and without knowing it, triggered a divine countdown. And God, the perfect judge, will by no means clear the guilty. Exodus 34-7. Think about history. Bernie Madoff built an empire on deceit, believing no one could touch him. For years, people thought he was untouchable, until his own actions became the snare that destroyed him. That's the same spiritual principle at work here. You didn't have to retaliate. You didn't have to lift a hand. The system you live under, God's system, did the work for you. Some of you may still wonder, but why didn't God stop them sooner? Why did I have to go through all that pain? Because, chosen one, God doesn't waste pain. All things work together for good to them that love God. Romans 8:28. Your suffering became the rope they used to hang themselves. Every time they mocked you, they were writing their own debt. And in the courts of heaven, debts don't vanish, they get collected with interest. This wasn't random, it was a test not just for you, but for them. Would they show honor? Would they show mercy? Or would they exploit you because they thought you had no power? Look at the fate of Judas Iscariot. He sat at the table with the Messiah, dipped bread in the same bowl, and still chose betrayal. Did he walk away free? No. The very silver he sold Jesus for became the weight that drove him to destruction. Now watch what's happening to those who wronged you. Projects collapsing, relationships fracturing, their once polished reputations slipping like sand through their fingers. It's the law of return. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. Galatians 6-7. They spat into the wind, and it came back in their face. The irony? They thought they were the hunters, but in reality, they were prey to their own schemes. Consider the story of Harvey Weinstein. For decades, he manipulated, abused, and silenced voices, thinking his power shielded him. Then, in what seemed like a sudden storm, everything crumbled. That's how divine timing works, slow to build, sudden to strike. And here's the part that keeps them up at night. You didn't fight back. No revenge plots. No smear campaigns, just silence. The same silence they mocked is now the loudest sound in their conscience. Some of them feel it in their body, the tightening in their chest when your name comes up. The restless nights, replaying what they did. They won't admit it. But deep down, they know the storm started the moment they crossed you. Do you remember Mike Tyson's famous quote? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Spiritually speaking, chosen one. They just got hit, not by you, but by the law of heaven. Vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. Romans 12:19. And when God moves, there's no appeal, no bargaining table, no second chance, unless repentance is genuine. Even now, some of them haven't seen the full force yet. What they're feeling is just the wind before the downpour. Think of Pharaoh in Exodus. Each plague was a warning, but his heart stayed hard until the final blow came. And by then, it was too late. So let this be your reminder. Chosen one, you were never powerless. You were the mirror. They looked into you and revealed who they truly were. The ones with clean hearts passed the test. The rest are now living inside the wreckage they built for you. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. They should have left you alone. The law they broke has no cancel button, no rewind. They wrote their ending the day they touched you, and now they're trapped inside it. Number 2. They took your silence for surrender, but you were just letting them hang themselves. Chosen one. How many times have you been in a room where someone confused your stillness for defeat? How many moments have you stood there, watching their words twist like knives, hearing the false stories they spread, and thought to yourself, if I open my mouth right now, it will be over for them? Yet you stayed quiet. You didn't stay silent because you were powerless. You stayed silent because you understood something they didn't. Timing is everything. And when you move, the atmosphere shifts. A tiger doesn't roar every time it's provoked. Sometimes it crouches low in the grass, invisible, patient, letting the other creatures forget it's even there, until the moment comes when the jungle itself changes at the sound of its movement. That was you. You weren't withdrawing. You were watching. You were calculating. You were weighing whether the situation even deserved the force you could bring to it. They looked at your calm face, your quiet steps, your refusal to explode in rage, and they celebrated too soon. They thought you were cracked, broken, easy to finish. They didn't realize that your calm was the very evidence of your strength. Even fools are thought wise if they keep silent, and discerning if they hold their tongues. Proverbs 17:28. Every time you chose not to respond, every time you let their lies pass without public defense, you were exercising sacred restraint, a level of control that only comes from knowing exactly what you're capable of. Let's make this real for a moment. Imagine someone dangling off the side of a cliff, gripping a rope for dear life, And you're the one holding the other end. They're throwing insults at you, kicking their feet, tossing rocks in your direction, absolutely convinced you will never let go. At first, you don't, not because they deserve saving, but because you hope they might stop before they go too far. But they keep pulling, shaking, testing your grip, until finally you let go. And gravity, that unbreakable law, finishes the job. Chosen one. Your silence was that rope. You held it far longer than anyone else would have. History is full of examples where someone's restraint was misread as weakness. Think of Mahatma Gandhi. The British Empire mistook his peaceful resistance for passivity, failing to realize it was the very force that would dismantle their control over India. Just like that, your refusal to fight on their level was never surrender. It was a warning they didn't understand. Sometimes silence isn't emptiness. It's a weapon so powerful that firing it too soon would be reckless. You weren't afraid of what they could do to you. You were fully aware of what you could do to them. You knew one word, one reveal, one undeniable piece of truth could collapse their entire image. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Proverbs 15:1. And you, chosen one, weren't about to let their chaos dictate your rhythm. Now I can hear you asking, but why did I even have to hold back? Why didn't I just end it? Because part of your divine assignment is knowing the weight of your own hand. Once you strike, there's no unstriking. You understand that raw power without discipline is just destruction. Think of Nelson Mandela, imprisoned for 27 years, holding back a flood of righteous anger. Yet when he was finally free, he chose a path of reconciliation over revenge. His restraint wasn't weakness, it was mastery. Your silence wasn't protecting them because they deserved it. It was protecting you, your peace, your alignment, your unshakable connection to God's order. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways. Psalm 37:7. You knew the truth. You didn't need to swing at them, because the swing wasn't yours to take. The law of balance, the scales of justice. The hand of God himself would do it better, cleaner, and without staining your spirit. Let me give you another picture. A massive dam holding back millions of gallons of water. On the other side of that dam are towns, homes, and entire lives that could be erased in minutes if the wall gave way. You were that dam. Every insult, betrayal, smear campaign, they were gallons of pressure building behind you. You could have released it all at once, letting the flood consume them. But you didn't, not because they were worth saving, but because you knew that when God decides the timing, the release is exact, unavoidable, and tailor-made. But here's the tragic comedy of it all. They mistook your control for softness. They thought your refusal to fight on their level meant you couldn't fight at all. So they pushed harder, louder, crueler. They thought your silence was their green light. In reality, it was the final warning before the lights went out. Think of Rosa Parks. She didn't scream, didn't throw a punch, didn't start a riot. She just stayed seated. And in that quiet act, she unleashed a movement that shook a nation. The truth is, chosen one. The only reason the storm didn't hit earlier was because you were standing between them and the consequences they were begging for. You were the pause between offense and judgment. And when you finally stepped aside, you didn't even have to look back. You knew the universe and the God who rules it had taken your place. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. Now they are finding out the difference between your version of consequences and the universe's version. Yours would have been sharp, but clean like surgery. The universe's version is slow, layered, and inescapable, like a sentence with no parole. It doesn't just touch their pride, it dismantles their comfort, their relationships, their false sense of control. It's the same principle that caught up to Al Capone, the gangster who thought he was untouchable until the law found a way to break him where he least expected: tax evasion. Not a gunfight, not a rival, just the slow, meticulous hand of justice. And this is why you can stand today without regret. You didn't lose anything by staying quiet. You gained the satisfaction of watching the very people who mocked your stillness now choke on it. Their boldness has vanished. Their fake confidence has crumbled. The same mouths that couldn't stop talking about you are now silent, avoiding your name like it's a curse. The calm before the storm isn't nothing. It's the weight of everything the storm is about to unleash. When they look back now, they'll see that you weren't weak. You were the shield between them and the very consequences they summoned. And once you moved out of the way, that shield disappeared. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Proverbs 26-27. Today, they're paying in ways they can't hide. Sleepless nights, anxiety eating at their health, friends quietly distancing themselves, doors they thought would always open, now locked tight. And deep down, deeper than their pride allows them to admit they know you could have ended them long before karma arrived. They know you had the truth, the receipts, the power. They know you gave them mercy they didn't earn. And that knowledge that they were saved, not by their own strength but by your restraint, is eating them alive more than any outside consequence ever could. Mercy, chosen one, has an expiration date, and when it runs out, the ones who mistook it for weakness will finally understand why they should have left you alone. Number 3, they tried to steal your soul's signature. Now the bill is in their name, chosen one. Have you ever noticed how some people don't just want to stand near you, they want to be you? Have you felt their eyes tracking every move you make, memorizing your words, adopting your style, mimicking your ideas, all while pretending it's their own? This wasn't simple flattery. This was identity theft at a soul level. And that's not something the universe lets slide. What they reached for wasn't a piece of jewelry, a bit of money, or a temporary advantage. They reached for your essence, your divine blueprint, the crown God forged for your head alone. And here's the truth. A man can receive nothing except it be given him from heaven. John 3:27. You can steal a crown, but if it wasn't molded for your head, it won't lift you. It will crush you. Let me paint the picture for you. Chosen one. Imagine someone sneaking into a high-security vault to steal a priceless diamond. They manage to slip it into their pocket, feeling triumphant until they realize it's been embedded with a sensor that triggers the moment it touches unauthorized hands. Suddenly, every camera, every alarm, every tracking device in the city is on them. That's exactly what happened here. The moment they tried to carry what wasn't theirs, your calling, your energy, your spiritual signature, the universe's tracking system locked on, and the consequences weren't random. They were custom-built, precise, inescapable. Psychologists confirm what scripture has shown for centuries. Envy doesn't just make people resent what you have, it drives them to either destroy it or absorb it, because they can't create it themselves. For where envy and self-seeking exist, confusion and every evil thing are there. James 3:16. These people smiled to your face, studied your craft, and rehearsed your language, all with the hidden goal of replacing you. Think about Elvis Presley. Many tried to copy his moves, his voice, his style, and some even enjoyed brief fame doing so. But none could truly carry what made Elvis, Elvis. And the ones who tried hardest often ended up trapped by the imitation, unable to sustain the weight of a persona that wasn't theirs to wear. That's exactly what's happening to those who tried to counterfeit you. Chosen one. What's inside you isn't transferable. It's like a spiritual fingerprint, encoded into your very being. The universe, the angels, and even your enemies' subconscious minds can recognize it instantly. You didn't buy it. You didn't borrow it. You became it through years of crushing, testing, breaking, and refining. For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works. Ephesians 2:10. That's why when they tried to put on your essence like a costume, it didn't fit, and it never will. Consider the tragic path of Anna Delvey, the infamous fake heiress. She copied the lifestyle, the language, and the social cues of the wealthy elite, thinking she could slide into their world. For a while, she fooled many, but the weight of sustaining a false identity eventually collapsed on her, exposing every crack in the facade. The same spiritual principle applies here. You can't sustain what was never yours to carry. What they wanted wasn't just your position, they wanted the fruit of your labor without sowing the seed, the oil of your anointing without the crushing that produced it. But spiritual theft works like trying to install advanced software on an incompatible system. It crashes everything. That's why their lives are glitching. Mental breakdowns, emotional instability, financial strain, physical exhaustion. Because the blessing of the Lord makes one rich, and he adds no sorrow with it. Proverbs 10:22. But a stolen mantle comes with nothing but sorrow. Think of the biblical example of Gehazi, servant to Elisha. When he tried to take the gifts that Elisha had refused, he thought he'd secured wealth. Instead, he inherited Naaman's leprosy, a weight he could never bear. This is the law in action. What you steal from the sacred doesn't bless you, it curses you. Now they walk around confused, paranoid, and unstable. Every fake compliment they ever gave you, every manipulation, every attempt to siphon your light, it's now their own undoing. Karma, or as Scripture calls it, the principle of sowing and reaping. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked, for whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. Galatians 6-7. Think about the music industry's countless one-hit wonders who tried to mimic another artist's sound. They may have scored temporary recognition, but because it wasn't authentic, it didn't last. The same is true for spiritual impersonation. The essence of who you are isn't a mask they can put on for the weekend. It's the result of divine forging, and the weight of it is too heavy for a counterfeit to carry. Here's the part that makes the universe's justice so poetic. They didn't just fail at becoming you, they inherited the burden of trying, and that burden is breaking them. You didn't have to clap back, call them out, or even prove they were imitating you. The very energy they tampered with turned against them. They thought they were smart enough to manipulate divine order. But the universe doesn't just remove them from the role, it sends them a bill with interest. Think of it like a spiritual audit, and God is the auditor. And as anyone who's faced a serious audit knows, it's invasive, it's thorough, and it leaves nothing hidden. For nothing is secret that will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. Every false move, every stolen idea, every whispered manipulation is on the record now. And unlike in the human system, there are no loopholes to slip through. Chosen one. You need to hear this. You are unrepeatable. Your soul's signature can't be forged without consequences. You didn't need to chase them down or fight for your name. Your role is protected under a law older and stronger than any human system, the law of divine assignment. And when someone tries to hijack that, they aren't just messing with you. They're trespassing on holy ground. Look at the story of Lucifer himself. He didn't want to worship, he wanted God's throne, and instead of elevating him, that ambition cast him down forever. That's the danger of trying to occupy a space God didn't give you. It's not just failure, it's ruin. So now, they're living under the very weight they thought they could steal from you. They're restless. Because wearing your essence is like wearing a crown made of thorns. Every moment cuts deeper. And as for you, chosen one, you can walk forward knowing your identity is untouchable. The ones who tried to steal it have already paid the down payment on their own downfall. And the final invoice? It's still coming. Number 4. They tried to shatter your image, but the glass cut their own hands. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed how quickly a lie can run? Have you seen how it can leap from one mouth to another, picking up speed, until it's reached people you've never even met? Did you wonder why they were so desperate to spread it? They counted on that speed. They believed all it would take to erase you was a handful of poisoned words, delivered to the right ears at the right time. They thought they could erase your presence from the room before you even walked in. But here's the reality they didn't factor in. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. Isaiah 54:17. Lies can run fast, but have you noticed that truth never stops running until it wins? And when truth arrives, it doesn't politely knock. It kicks the door clean off its hinges. They didn't just want to wound you, they wanted you gone. And they truly believed their whispers could make that happen. But what happens when someone swings to break a mirror and ends up cutting their own hands? What happens when every shard points back at the attacker instead of the target? Picture this. Chosen one. They grab a stone and hurl it at a mirror, thinking your reflection will vanish. Instead, the mirror shatters and every shard reflects their face, their intentions, their ugliness, multiplied for all to see. Can you see now how their plan backfired before it even reached you? The harder they tried to smear you, the more the light shifted to reveal their own fingerprints all over the mess. Look at history. Richard Nixon's cover-up during Watergate was supposed to protect his image. Did it work? Or did the attempt to hide the truth make the truth 10 times more damaging? That's what happens when people think they can craft your ending only to end up writing their own. They didn't just gossip, they performed. Every lie was a scene. Every fake smile was a costume. And for a while, the audience clapped. But let me ask you, have you ever watched a play where the script stopped making sense halfway through? How long before the crowd stops cheering and starts asking questions? That's exactly what happened here. The longer they kept performing, the more the cracks showed. People began replaying their words in their minds and thinking, if this is true, why doesn't it match what I've seen for myself? How long can someone sell a story that doesn't align with reality before the audience walks out? Think about Meghan Markle for months. Negative headlines tried to define her, but over time, more people started asking, if she's truly as bad as they say, why do their stories keep changing? The same shift is happening now for you. People are connecting dots. And guess whose picture is forming? Not yours, theirs. The truth is, chosen one. What they called destroying your name was really a confession. a confession of envy, insecurity, and discomfort with your very existence. Why do you think your presence alone unsettled them so much? Could it be that you embodied the courage they never found in themselves? In the Bible, Haman's jealousy toward Mordecai in the book of Esther drove him to build gallows to kill the man he hated. Did Mordecai end up on those gallows? No, Haman did. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. Proverbs 26-27. That's divine irony. The very trap they set for you becomes their stage of shame. And look at how the energy has flipped. The same mouths that once rushed to repeat lies about you are now whispering truths about them. The same hands that clapped for their drama are now pointing at their hypocrisy, the stage they built to mock you. That's where their own downfall is playing out. Live. In front of everyone. How does it feel? Chosen one. To know you didn't have to lift a finger to see justice take center stage. Consider Lance Armstrong. The world celebrated his victories until the doping scandal broke. Then the same press that praised him became the megaphone for his disgrace. Do you see the pattern? The public that cheers you without truth will turn just as quickly when the truth finally arrives. And here's the victory for you. You didn't have to fight for your reputation. You didn't have to exhaust yourself correcting every lie. Have you realized yet that your greatest defense was your consistency? By their fruit you will recognize them. Matthew 7:16. Over time, your fruit outweighed their fiction. People began to remember what they had personally seen in you. They compared it to the stories they were told, and it didn't add up. Can you feel how time itself became your ally? How truth used patience as its weapon? Joseph in Genesis lived this. His brothers tried to erase him, selling him into slavery, convincing their father he was gone forever. Yet, in the end, those same brothers had to come to him for help. You meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Genesis 50-20. Have you thought about how your story might follow the same arc, where the people who tried to erase you end up needing to acknowledge you? And the poetic twist? Every attempt to smear you became free advertising for your resilience. People who never knew your name before started hearing it, and when they checked for themselves, they didn't find the villain in the story. They found someone whose strength, integrity, and grace under pressure made the lies collapse under their own weight. Now, the tables have turned. The ones who tried to script your downfall are now the subjects of whispers they can't control. They're watching as allies slip away. As the audience that once cheered starts folding their arms, how long do you think they can keep smiling when the mask is cracking in full view? So, chosen one, here's your reminder. You never needed to swing back. You never needed to fight on their level. Your truth, your fruit, and your consistency have done the work for you. And as the glass they threw shatters around them, cutting their own hands, they're learning the law that cannot be broken when you try to destroy someone else's reflection. The sharpest glass always cuts the one who threw the stone. Number 5. They thought they shattered you, but they hit the switch on your war mode. Chosen one. Have you ever seen someone look at you like they've already written your ending? Have you felt the smug satisfaction in their eyes when they thought the betrayal they dealt you would be the final scene of your story? They pictured you folding in on yourself, shrinking, disappearing from the game, like a piece taken off the board. Did they really think you were built to crumble like that? They didn't understand one crucial truth. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. 2 Corinthians 4:8-9. Chosen ones don't break the way ordinary people do. Pain doesn't erase us, it upgrades us. They were convinced the hit they dealt was lethal, that the betrayal would drain you dry, that the loss would leave you crawling, that the trauma would reduce you to a shadow. But have you noticed? Chosen one. How some wounds don't close you off, they open new doors. What if the pain you endured was not a lock but a key? Imagine this, a priceless artifact buried for centuries, hidden under layers of earth, unseen and unvalued. Then one day, a violent storm tears through the land, splitting the ground wide open. Suddenly, that artifact is exposed, not damaged, but revealed. That storm was your heartbreak, your betrayal, your dark nights. Did they really think they were burying you deeper? All they did was crack open the shell, hiding your power. History repeats this pattern over and over. Think of Nelson Mandela, locked away for 27 years. His enemies thought the prison bars would break him. Instead, those years refined his vision, deepened his resolve, and turned him into the leader who would change the fate of a nation. That's the blueprint of a chosen one's war mode. Science teaches that pressure creates diamonds. But do you realize how that applies to you? Every sleepless night, every tear, every hour you sat in silence wondering why God allowed this. It was like a code being typed into your spirit, unlocking the deepest parts of your divine DNA. But He knows the way that I take. When He has tested me, I will come forth as gold. Job 23:10. Ancient warriors understood this. They didn't see trials as punishment, they saw them as training grounds. Every battle wound was proof they had survived, something meant to kill them. Think of Joan of Arc. Her capture and trial were meant to end her influence. Yet her courage under fire made her a legend whose legacy still inspires centuries later. That's what happens when a chosen one is pushed into war mode. They become unforgettable. They thought silencing you would end you. Instead, they handed you the coordinates to your higher self. Have you noticed how, after the pain, you started seeing patterns you couldn't see before? How motives and lies suddenly stood out in bright color? How your steps became more precise, your words more deliberate, your presence impossible to ignore? That's not coincidence, that's activation. Think of Malala Yousafzai. When she was attacked for speaking up for girls' education, her enemies thought they'd silence her forever. Instead, the attempt on her life propelled her voice onto a global stage, making her a symbol of courage. That's what betrayal does to the chosen ones. It makes their influence bigger, not smaller. Chosen one. This wasn't just healing. Healing is restoration to where you were before. This was transformation into a version of you that has never existed before, sharper, more strategic, fully guided by the one who has seen the whole map. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. You didn't just recover, you advanced. The same storm they thought would sink, you actually cleared the debris from your path. Old alliances that were secretly slowing you down dissolved. People who were holding you back revealed themselves and exited. And here's the most telling sign. New doors began to open. Unexpected allies appeared. Opportunities that had been locked for years swung wide. Have you noticed how the timing feels too perfect to be random? Look at Oprah Winfrey's story. Fired from her first television job, humiliated, and told she was unfit for television. She could have disappeared. Instead, she built one of the most powerful media empires in history. Sometimes the betrayal is just the wind that pushes your ship into the right current. And all the while, those who wanted your downfall are forced to watch. Can you imagine the frustration of seeing the person you tried to bury rise higher than you've ever been? That's where they are now. They can't explain it, but they can feel it, the shift in your presence. The way your spirit now carries an unshakable authority. They didn't break you. They broke the illusion that you were ever powerless, and in doing so, they activated a version of you that moves with a quiet certainty, as if you already know the outcome. That's why they're uneasy in your presence now. They can't predict you. They can't provoke you like before. You've stopped playing their game entirely. It's the same pattern you see in Scripture with David, before he ever faced Goliath. He faced lions and bears alone in the wilderness. Those battles didn't break him, they prepared him. He trains my hands for battle. My arms can bend a bow of bronze. Psalm 18:34. The betrayal you faced was just one more training ground, and now you're walking with the skill set of a giant slayer. And here's the part that scares them most. You're no longer just surviving. You're untouchable. Not because nothing will ever come against you again, but because you've learned how to turn every attack into advancement. You've stopped fearing storms because you've realized you are the storm. So let me ask you, chosen one, are you starting to see the pattern yet? Are you starting to understand that every time they tried to take you out, they were actually pushing you closer to the version of yourself God intended? Are you ready to step into the next season knowing you're not the same person they betrayed? You're more, because now, they aren't just looking at the old you. They're looking at the warrior you became, in the fire they lit, and deep down, they know that's a battle they will never win. Number 6. This isn't misfortune. It's the bill for crossing a protected soul. Chosen one. How many times have you seen people confuse divine patience with a free pass? Have you noticed how quick they are to call it bad luck when their own actions finally come home to roost? They don't realize yet what's hitting them right now isn't misfortune. It's an invoice, and the charges are itemized. The universe doesn't take revenge. God himself doesn't act out of spite. Instead, the Lord is a God of justice. Blessed are all those who wait for him. Isaiah 30:18. Heaven takes inventory. Every act, every word, every betrayal is noted. And when the counting is done, the invoice doesn't get lost in the mail. It's sent directly to the exact address it's owed. What they're living through right now is not a streak of bad luck. It's not just life. It's not a random rough patch. Have you ever thought about how precise the consequences feel? Every sleepless night, every sudden financial hit, every relationship cracking at the seams. It's not random. It's the exact receipt for a spiritual crime they thought went unseen. Imagine this. Chosen one. Someone steals a credit card they don't own. They swipe it over and over, enjoying the purchases, confident no one is tracking it. They buy, they take, they indulge until one day the bill arrives. Only this time, the name on the account is theirs. That's karma. That's spiritual law. The charge, crossing a sacred being. The interest, the suffering that follows until the debt is fully paid. History is full of examples of people who thought they could take without cost. Think of Bernie Madoff. For years, he built a fortune by stealing the trust and resources of others. It felt untouchable until the reckoning came, and every cent had to be accounted for. That's exactly what happens when someone violates a chosen one. They treated your loyalty like it was cheap. Have you noticed how they acted like your love was replaceable? How they fed off your energy as if it was a buffet they could visit whenever they pleased? What they didn't see was that you were marked not for ego or attention, but for divine impact. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. And light like that doesn't just brighten rooms, it exposes darkness. When someone crosses that kind of soul, The universe doesn't warn twice. Think of the biblical story of Pharaoh. Moses came with warnings, but Pharaoh's arrogance made him think he could resist divine order. What followed wasn't random misfortune, it was precise, targeted, and unavoidable. They mistook your patience for weakness. It wasn't weakness, it was grace. And grace is one of the most misunderstood forces on earth. Grace will cover someone for a time, giving them space to repent, to change course. But grace is not infinite when it's being abused. You allowed them to drink from your well until there was nothing left, and when you stepped back, the grace stepped back with you. Have you noticed how quickly things changed for them after that? Now, it's not you they're fighting. They may still try to throw shade your way, but deep down they know this isn't about you anymore. What's crushing them now is the weight of every lie, every manipulation, every calculated move they thought would never see the light of day. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. Galatians 6-7. This isn't emotional backlash. This isn't you getting even. The universe isn't petty, it's exact. Have you ever noticed how certain doors in their life closed right after they crossed you? How opportunities they were bragging about suddenly evaporated? That's because the moment you removed your presence, heaven removed its covering from them. Think about it. Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery and thought they had erased him. Years later, famine hit, and they found themselves at the mercy of the very one they tried to destroy. That's how divine justice works. It's not rushed, but it's unavoidable. That's why their life now feels like it's unraveling in ways no amount of affirmations, distractions, or fake positivity can fix. They can post smiles on social media, but behind closed doors, the strain is showing. This isn't just a bad season. It's not just bad timing. It's divine accountability. Consider the case of Lance Armstrong. For years, his success looked unstoppable. When the truth about doping came out, every title, every endorsement, every ounce of public trust was stripped away. That wasn't bad luck, it was the exact cost of deception. Paid in full. Chosen one. The law they broke isn't human-made. They didn't just hurt a person, they violated something sacred. And when you break that kind of law, it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living God. Hebrews 10:31. There are no payment plans, no extensions, no negotiation. And here's the sobering part. The debt isn't just financial or material, it's emotional, spiritual, and generational. They'll feel it in their relationships, in their mental stability, in the way every step forward feels like it's on sinking sand. And until they face what they've done, the interest will keep compounding. Think of Harvey Weinstein. For decades, he used his power to exploit others, thinking no one could hold him accountable. When the reckoning came, it wasn't just legal consequences, it was the collapse of his entire identity. That's the nature of divine accounting. It doesn't just take the surface, it strips the foundation. So, chosen one, here's the truth you need to rest in. You didn't have to lift a hand for this to happen. You didn't have to curse them, plot against them, or even hope for their downfall. You simply had to step out of the way and let the one who protects you handle the ledger, and he always balances it. Let me ask you, can you see now why it was important for you not to retaliate? Can you see how your stillness allowed the full weight of accountability to land where it belonged? Can you trust that the same God who saw the betrayal also sees your healing? Their debt is due. Chosen one. And this time, there are no extensions, Number 7. They smirked at your fall. Now they're choking on your rise. Chosen one. Have you ever seen the look on someone's face when they realize the person they mocked is now standing taller than they've ever been? Can you feel that shift in the air when someone's smirk freezes because their punchline just lost all its humor? That's what's happening right now. The same people who treated your pain like their entertainment are now forced to watch your elevation, and it's a show they can't turn off. When you were struggling, misunderstood, stripped of everything familiar, they assumed it was your end. They mistook a season for a sentence. They saw you on the ground and thought, that's where you'd stay. Do not gloat over me. My enemy, though I have fallen, I will rise. Micah 7-8. Laughing at someone who's down is easy when you've convinced yourself they'll never get back up. They treated your pain like prime-time entertainment. Do you remember how every stumble became a punchline? How every time you chose silence, they took it as a green light to talk louder. They nodded along to gossip, swapped ugly jokes, and puffed up their chests because seeing you shrink made them feel bigger. Have you ever wondered why someone's confidence depends so much on your misfortune? Could it be because your very presence, even at your lowest, still cast a shadow on their comfort? To them, your loss was proof they were above you. But here's what they didn't realize. You weren't losing. You were loading. What looked like a breakdown was actually the clearing of a foundation. Think of it like a demolition before a skyscraper goes up. The old has to come down so the new can stand taller. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118-22. Look at the life of J.K. Rowling. Before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon, she was broke, divorced, and rejected by multiple publishers. Many probably thought she'd peaked and faded, but what they didn't know was that she was in her loading season, gathering the words, the vision, and the resilience that would later change her life forever. The universe doesn't rush transformation. God doesn't either. The betrayal, the loneliness, and the quiet was stripping away false layers, outdated identities, and attachments that couldn't go with you where you were headed. Have you started to realize yet that what felt like abandonment was actually alignment, that the silence wasn't empty, it was sacred space being prepared? Now the rise is here, and it's not subtle. You're moving with a power they can't explain, and a grace they can't compete with. Doors are swinging open in places they swore you'd never step foot in. Opportunities that should have taken years are showing up without warning. Does it feel almost strange how quickly things are shifting now? That's because the work was already done in the dark. Consider the story of Nelson Mandela. While in prison, the world might have assumed he was finished. But his years in confinement became the training ground for the leadership that would dismantle apartheid. The rise wasn't sudden, it was prepared in secret. So when it came, it was unstoppable. And now, chosen one, your shine is doing something more than making you visible. It's making their mockery visible for what it truly was. Cruelty. The laughter they shared at your expense now echoes in their own minds, not as humor, but as evidence that they misjudged you, evidence that they underestimated someone who was never finished, evidence that they bet against a soul backed by God. If God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8:31. Imagine this. Someone sees a seed buried in the dirt and laughs. Look at it. It's gone, they say. Months later, they come back and find a towering tree, its branches stretching far beyond their reach, its shade blocking their entire view. That's you. While they were mocking, you were rooting. Every tear watered your soil. Every moment alone gave your roots room to deepen. History offers countless echoes of this story. Take Steve Jobs, forced out of the company he founded, mocked by critics who thought his career was over. Years later, he returned to Apple, launching products that changed the world. Those who smirked at his fall had to watch his comeback reshape the very industry they thought he'd left forever. Here's the part they can't shake. Your success isn't just a win for you, it's a mirror for them. It reflects every wrong judgment, every careless word. Every time they took pleasure in your struggle, deep down, they know they weren't just passive observers. They were active characters in that chapter of your life. And now they feel the unease, the guilt, the creeping realization of what it means to have mocked someone who was being protected, prepared, and positioned the whole time. Have you noticed how quiet they've become lately? The same voices that once filled the air with gossip now struggle to make eye contact. That silence, it's not peace, it's the weight of their own conscience. Think of the biblical story of Joseph. His brothers laughed at his dreams, sold him into slavery, and thought they had erased him. Years later, they bowed before him in Egypt, completely dependent on the one they once despised. That's the scale of reversal God is capable of bringing. Humble yourselves before the Lord, and he will lift you up. James 4:10. Your elevation doesn't just close their mouths, it documents them. It's the living record of who laughed when they thought you were finished. And the most poetic part, the higher you rise, the more obvious it becomes that their laughter was never proof of your end. It was proof of their own short-sightedness. So, chosen one, let me ask you, can you feel how different it is to walk now? Can you sense that the strength in your stride comes not just from survival, but from the knowledge that you've been vindicated without even having to fight back? Can you see how God didn't just restore you to where you were, but elevated you beyond what they thought was possible? They thought they were watching a burial. What they were really watching was the soil being turned for your bloom. And now that you've risen, their silence is deafening, not because they have nothing to say, but because every word would be an admission that they were wrong about you all along. Number 8. They buried lies in the dark. Now they're harvesting shame in broad daylight. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed how people act bolder in the shadows? How their whispers seem sharper when they think no one can hear? That's where they worked in the dark. They buried their lies deep, convinced that if they planted them quietly enough, they would grow into something useful for their agenda. But here's the truth. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8:17. They thought they were untouchable, twisting truths into unrecognizable shapes, passing their version of events from one ear to another like some clever secret. But can you see the flaw in their plan? Every seed grows, and no matter what, nothing stays buried forever. Imagine this. Someone sneaks into a garden at night, plants seeds in a hidden corner, and waters them in secret. They smile to themselves, certain no one will ever know. But when the plants finally break the surface, they're not flowers. They're invasive weeds, sharp and ugly, spreading into every corner of the yard. That's their lies. Chosen one. What they thought would damage you is now choking their own life. Think about Richard Nixon during Watergate. He thought the cover-up would protect him. Instead, the secrecy became the very thing that destroyed him. Lies always have roots, and roots always push to the surface. Here's the beauty: you didn't have to defend yourself. You didn't have to run from person to person explaining your side. Why? Because the truth has its own heartbeat. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. And once truth wakes up, it moves with precision. The same mouths they used to spread falsehoods are now asking them hard questions. The same people they once convinced to turn against you are now noticing the cracks in their story. Can you feel the shift? The weight of defending a lie is always heavier than telling the truth. And now they're buckling under it. Think of Lance Armstrong. For years, his victories stood unquestioned until the truth surfaced. The exposure wasn't random. It was the natural harvest of what had been sown in secret. That's how it works in the spirit too. This karmic exposure is surgical. No screaming matches. No public brawls. No petty revenge. Just a quiet, perfectly timed unveiling. The same way they planted deceit in silence. God is revealing it at full volume. Vengeance is mine. I will repay, says the Lord. Romans 12:19. And here's what's breaking them. It's not just that they're being exposed. It's that it's happening without you lifting a finger. Your peace is making their chaos stand out. Your stability is making their insecurity obvious. Your consistency is turning their lies into something laughably transparent. Consider Martha Stewart's insider trading scandal. For years, her brand was spotless. But when the truth emerged, it wasn't just the facts. It was the contrast between her image and her actions that made the exposure devastating. That's what's happening here. They planted betrayal, and now they're harvesting shame. And this time, the audience isn't laughing with them, they're watching them unravel. Deep down, they know the seeds were theirs, and now, the whole world is watching them reap. Number 9. They waited for your collapse. Now they're the ones in pieces. Chosen one. Do you remember how they hovered, waiting for you to break? Like vultures circling overhead. They were convinced your fight was almost over. Have you ever wondered why some people crave your downfall so much? Could it be because your very existence challenges the lies they tell themselves about their own strength? They didn't just want you to stumble. They wanted you erased. Your pain was their entertainment. Your setbacks, their proof that they were superior. When the wicked rise to power, people go into hiding. But when the wicked perish, the righteous thrive. Proverbs 28:28. When you pulled back to heal, they mistook your silence for surrender. They thought your retreat meant your story had ended. But here's what they didn't know. Your silence was incubation. You weren't breaking. You were reforming, piece by piece. God was rebuilding you into something they'd have no defense against. Think of Steve Jobs after being fired from Apple. Many thought his career was finished. Instead, he returned years later and reshaped the tech world forever. That's the pattern you're walking in now. They couldn't see that your existence disrupted their illusions, even without flaunting your strength. Your presence disturbed their comfort, and when they came for you, they weren't just attacking your humanity, they were coming against a force they couldn't define, let alone defeat. Now the shift is here. Every drop of poison they aimed at you is flowing back into their own cup. The job losses, the broken relationships, the restless nights. Can you see how it's not coincidence? It's, for with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Luke 6:38, in action. Imagine this. They sent a storm in your direction, but the wind shifted, and now their own house is flooding. That's exactly what's happening. While you rise from the rubble, they tried to bury you under. They're tripping over the debris of their own making. Think about Goliath mocking David. He laughed at the boy with the sling until the stone hit. The very arrogance that made him feel invincible was the reason he fell. That's the danger of underestimating the protected, the cruelest part for them, the trials they celebrated in your life, became your training ground. Every challenge they laughed at was forging armor they can't pierce. Like Malala Yousafzai, who turned an assassination attempt into a global platform for education. You've transformed pain into power. This isn't petty revenge. This isn't you getting even. This is balance. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Galatians 6-7. You were never destined to remain broken, and they were never going to walk away untouched. The collapse they prayed for in your life is now unfolding in theirs, loud, messy, undeniable. Not because you asked for it, but because they built it with their own hands. And now, chosen one, the silence on your side isn't emptiness, it's victory. Number 10. Their sorry can't undo what they already delivered. Chosen one. Have you ever had someone come back with an apology that felt more like a performance than repentance? Have you ever read their sorry and known instantly it wasn't about you, it was about them trying to stop what's already coming? That's the space you're standing in right now. And I need you to understand something clearly. Their apology may ease their conscience, but it won't erase the invoice. Heaven has already mailed out. They had chance after chance to turn back. God gave them warnings, not just once, but multiple times. Those subtle pauses in their spirit, those gut-deep hesitations before they acted, those dreams they couldn't shake, even the resistance in the air when they plotted against you. That wasn't random, but if they do not listen, they will perish by the sword and die without knowledge. Job 36-12. Every sign was a divine speed bump, a chance to reconsider. Their own spirit whispered, "Don't do this." But pride is a dangerous driver, and pride will take a person straight through every red light, past every caution, ignoring every road-closed sign, until the crash is unavoidable. They thought they were in control, but pride, like Scripture warns, go before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16:18. Now that the storm they summoned is pounding on their own door, suddenly their tone has changed. You might get an awkward message, a shaky voicemail, a sudden check-in from someone who hasn't cared in months or years. They want to sound concerned, but can't hide the fear under the words. But chosen one, this isn't repentance. It's panic. They're not sorry for the wound they gave you. They're sorry because that cut is now bleeding into their own life. It's not empathy driving them. It's fear of the bill coming due. History repeats this story over and over. Think of Richard Nixon again. His public apology after Watergate didn't erase the consequences. Or Lance Armstrong, who admitted doping after years of denial, but only when the evidence became overwhelming. In both cases, the apologies came when the fallout was inevitable, not when repentance would have mattered most. Karma, or as we understand it in the Word, the principle of sowing and reaping, isn't fooled by performance. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. Galatians 6-7. It doesn't care about well-worded texts or teary phone calls. It doesn't judge by tone. It reads energy. It remembers intention. It replays the moments nobody else saw, the times they laughed at your pain, manipulated your kindness, or pushed you further just to watch you crack. That's the footage heaven uses when deciding the weight of the harvest. Imagine this. A thief breaks into a house, sets off every alarm, and then thinks they can stop the police from coming by mailing the homeowner a letter that says, "Sorry." That's exactly how absurd their attempt is now. Some doors, once opened, can't be closed on command. Some systems, once triggered, run their full course, whether you want them to or not. Think of World War II. Once certain lines were crossed, certain invasions launched, there was no pause button. The conflict had to play out until its conclusion. The same is true with spiritual law. They assumed time would dilute their actions, that if they ignored it long enough, the impact would fade. But spiritual law doesn't have an expiration date. Cain couldn't undo killing Abel. Judas couldn't undo betraying Jesus. Some choices can be forgiven, but their consequences still stand, for God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing, whether it is good or evil. Ecclesiastes 12:14. Every offense they committed was a seed, every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal, and those seeds are flowering now. Think of Bernie Madoff's decades-long Ponzi scheme. The seeds of deception planted year after year didn't sprout overnight. But when the harvest came, it came all at once, devastatingly. And this, chosen one, is key. This is not because you cursed them. This is not because you wished ill upon them. You didn't need to lift a finger. The same system they mocked, the same law they treated like a joke, decided it was time to collect. Now they want your forgiveness. But why? Is it because they truly value it? Or because they think your forgiveness will act as a spiritual reset button to stop the consequences already in motion? Forgiveness can free you from bitterness, but it doesn't erase their debt to divine justice. That's between them and God now. It is mine to avenge. I will repay, says the Lord. Romans 12:19. Think about Martha Stewart's insider trading case. After her conviction, she could publicly apologize, but the sentencing still stood. The system doesn't throw out the verdict because the person finally admits they crossed a line. So here's the truth. Chosen one, this isn't your battle anymore. You're not the prosecutor. You're not the judge. The ledger is balancing itself, and it's being handled by hands far more precise than yours. Can you see now why you were told to stay still? Even when everything in you wanted to speak up, can you see how stepping back left space for the full weight of accountability to fall exactly where it belongs? And can you rest in knowing that this harvest is not about vengeance, but about alignment, about returning everything to its rightful owner? They gambled with sacred energy, and they lost. And the fallout? It's not optional. It's not negotiable. It's scheduled. And when the schedule of heaven arrives, there's no canceling the appointment. Number 11. They threw energy like a weapon. Now it's coming back sharper than they sent it. Chosen one. Have you ever seen someone treat their words, their intentions, and their energy like they were throwing darts at a wall, convinced nothing would bounce back? Have you watched people hurl emotional and spiritual weapons toward you with a smile on their face, as if their cruelty could be dressed up in calmness and get away undetected? That's what they did to you. They treated energy like a toy, something to twist, aim, and fire without consequence. They thought, if they stayed calculated enough, gaslit you just right, and masked their venom behind polished words. They could hit you without leaving fingerprints. They looked at your silence and called it weakness. They looked at your empathy and called it naivety. They looked at your loyalty and called it foolishness. But can I ask you, isn't it funny how people mistake self-control for lack of power? They knew where you were, tender. They studied you, not to understand you, but to manipulate you. They mapped your pain like a blueprint, pressing on every wound, not to heal it, but to keep you under control. The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? Jeremiah 17:9. They thought they could press those buttons forever without ever paying for it. They thought your refusal to retaliate meant you couldn't retaliate. But here's what they didn't count on the oldest law in existence. Energy never disappears. It travels, it circles, and eventually it comes home to the sender. This is the law of return, woven into creation itself. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. Galatians 6-7. Think of Muhammad Ali in the boxing ring. He mastered the art of letting his opponents swing, tire themselves out, and create their own exhaustion before delivering the decisive blow. That's what you did. Chosen one. You didn't need to swing wildly. You simply stepped back and let the law work for you. The moment you stepped away, really stepped away, removing yourself from their reach entirely, everything shifted. You didn't smear their name. You didn't plot their downfall. You simply removed the source of their control over you. That's when the boomerang began its return. History shows this pattern again and again. Think of the rise and fall of Napoleon Bonaparte. His relentless drive to dominate eventually led him into situations that turned his own strategies against him. The same skill he used to control others became the trap that brought him down. Energy always returns. Now, every lie, every whispered insult, every smirk behind closed doors is finding its way back to them sharper than when it left. And here's the part that's tearing them apart. They don't have your grace to carry it. You took their blows in silence, rebuilt yourself in the dark, and still walked out with your heart intact. But now, tasting just a fraction of what they fed you, they're splitting at the seams. Think of the biblical account of Haman in the book of Esther. He built gallows for Mordecai, plotting his destruction, but those same gallows became the place of his own downfall. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Proverbs 26-27. Their mind won't rest now. The same anxiety they tried to seed in your life has become the soundtrack of their nights. Their relationships are fracturing under mistrust. Their peace has been replaced by paranoia. And unlike you forged through trial after trial, they were never built to endure this level of weight. Look at Enron. Once hailed as a corporate giant, the deceptive practices they unleashed eventually came crashing back on them, leaving the perpetrators unable to withstand the very chaos they had engineered for profit. That's the same collapse pattern spiritual law creates when people misuse energy against a chosen one. This isn't random misfortune, this is correction. The law of return at work. And make no mistake, it's not petty payback. It's perfect balance. Just like Newton's third law of motion in science, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. The spiritual realm operates with the same precision. But here's the deeper truth. Sacred energy doesn't return in the same shape or size. It comes back heavier, sharper, louder. With the measure you use, it will be measured to you, and even more. Mark 4:24. And when it lands, it always hits hardest on the hand that dared to misuse it. Consider the fall of Harvey Weinstein. For years, he used his influence as a weapon, believing his power insulated him from consequences. But when the reckoning came, the force of the exposure was far greater than the sum of his offenses. That's what happens when misuse of power meets divine timing. They weren't built to carry what they tried to load onto you. That's why you survived. And they're unraveling. You had the resilience, the grace, and the spiritual covering to endure it. They don't. And now, for the first time, they know it. So, can you see now why you didn't need to fight back in the moment? Can you see why stepping aside was actually the most powerful move you could make, because now, the same law they mocked is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Bring the energy full circle, sharpened, and impossible to ignore. Chosen one. Remember this, you don't need to throw anything back. You just need to keep walking, keep growing, and keep your spirit clean. The return is already on its way, and when it arrives, it will land exactly where it belongs. Number 12. They thought they could handle you now. They're living with what they woke up. Chosen one. Have you ever had someone look at you like you were an easy target? The kind of person they could drain dry, discard when it suited them, and come back to later if they felt like it? That's exactly how they misread you. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your patience for passivity, and your compassion for naivety. They thought you were harmless, but they didn't know that beneath that calm exterior, you carried something ancient, powerful, and untouchable. To them, you were an easy mark, quiet enough not to fight back, kind enough to keep giving chances. But the Lord is faithful, and He will strengthen you and protect you from the evil one. 2 Thessalonians 3:3. What they couldn't see was that you were guarded not just by willpower, but by a divine force they couldn't measure, and a spiritual law they could never escape. When they crossed you, they didn't just mistreat a human being, they mishandled sacred authority. Think about Uzzah in 2 Samuel 6. He touched the Ark of the Covenant without clearance, and the result was instant judgment. That's how it is when someone steps into spiritual territory uninvited. They didn't just make a mistake, they committed a violation against something holy. And now, the laughter they once had at your expense has turned into restless nights. Their confidence has rotted into confusion. Their so-called victories are overshadowed by inexplicable setbacks. This isn't guilt. Guilt requires honesty. This is something deeper, almost primal, the unshakable knowing that they crossed a line they can't uncross. Think about Bernie Madoff. He lived large for years, but deep down, he knew the collapse was coming. The air feels heavier for them now. The silence feels louder. And the worst part? They can't explain it away. Every financial block, every crack in their relationships, every sudden decline in peace or health, none of it is random. It's the chain reaction of mishandling what was never theirs to touch. Touch not mine anointed, and do my prophets no harm. Psalm 105:15. They walked into sacred territory with arrogance. The energy there doesn't just forgive because you say sorry. It reacts. It mirrors. They thought they were dealing with someone powerless, but they were actually standing in front of a divine checkpoint. Look at Steve Jobs when Apple's board underestimated him and pushed him out. They thought they had control, but the energy they unleashed came back. And when he returned, he rebuilt the company into an empire they couldn't stop. That's you. Chosen one, not just returning, but returning in power. You didn't need to seek revenge. The energy you carry already knows how to defend itself. And that's what's haunting them, not just the memory of what they did, but the realization of who they did it to. They failed the test badly. Now the same force they mocked is making them feel everything they made. You feel only without your resilience to withstand it. Sleep escapes them. Peace rejects them. Every room feels smaller. Every plan more fragile. They aren't haunted by ghosts. They're haunted by the cost of crossing you, and that cost is non-refundable. Number 13. Their greatest punishment, knowing they'll never touch you again. Chosen one. Some doors don't just close, they vanish. And for the ones who mistreated you, That's their greatest punishment. They'll spend the rest of their lives searching for the way back into your presence. But the entrance no longer exists. They thought pushing you out meant they'd won, in their minds. You were disposable, a backup plan, a safety net, a resource they could disrespect and still expect to use later. They couldn't see your worth because their ego blinded them. But the stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118-22. You weren't just a person in their life. You were grace in human form. You were loyalty, healing, and spiritual covering wrapped into a soul they didn't understand. Instead of honoring that, they treated you like you'd always be there, no matter how many times they crossed the line. Here's the truth they didn't realize. You were the blessing they were living under. Your presence opened doors for them they couldn't open alone. Your prayers covered situations they never even knew were coming. Opportunities seemed to follow them. Peace seemed to surround them, and they thought it was luck. Or worse, their own doing. History proves this pattern. Think of Robin Williams. So many people underestimated the depth of his gift while he was here. Only after he was gone did they realize the light they'd lost. People rarely understand the value of a blessing until it's out of reach. Then one day, without warning, the energy shifted. You stopped answering. You stopped explaining. You stopped making yourself available. No fight. No dramatic exit. Just silence. Distance. And a door they can't find anymore. And that's the punishment. Not that you walked away, but that they'll never be able to walk back in once the master of the house has risen and shut the door. And you begin to stand outside and to knock at the door. He will answer, "I do not know you." Luke 13:25. Now, their rooms feel heavy. Opportunities slip through their fingers. Relationships collapse under their own weight. They can't name what's missing, but you can. It's you. You were the shield they didn't see, the key they didn't honor. Think about the fall of Blockbuster. They had the opportunity to partner with Netflix and ignored it. They thought they didn't need what was right in front of them until it was gone for good. That's the energy your absence carries now. The most brutal part, they have to watch you rise, stepping into blessings they can't sabotage. Circles they'll never enter. Conversations they'll never hear. And deep down, they know your elevation is undeniable proof of what they tried to deny, that you were never beneath them. You were operating at a higher frequency the whole time. There's no re-entry, no reset. That access expired the moment they played with what was sacred. And now, their lifelong karma is to watch you thrive untouchable, unbothered, unreachable, knowing they once had access and threw it away. And so, chosen one, every moment, every trial, every betrayal we've uncovered leads to this undeniable truth. What they designed for your destruction became the very framework for your elevation. The traps they set for you became the training ground for your endurance. The storms they summoned forged your unshakable faith. Their actions wrote their own ending. But your perseverance, your refusal to quit, rewrote yours. You are not just standing today. You are standing refined, stronger, wiser, untouchable. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17 isn't just a verse anymore. It's your living testimony. You are proof that divine justice doesn't just restore, it multiplies. If this message stirred something in your spirit, if you felt seen, strengthened, or confirmed in your journey, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. Thank you for walking through this series with me, for lending your time, your attention, and your heart to every word. If you feel led and want to support this work, you can do so through the Super Thanks button. It's never required, but always deeply appreciated. Whether you choose to donate or not, please know this: I value you the same. Your presence here is already a gift I don't take lightly. As you step into your next season, may the same God who defended you in the shadows continue to elevate you in the open. May your path be lined with favor, your home be filled with peace, and your spirit overflow with joy that no one can steal. May every closed door be replaced with one better, and may your victories be so undeniable that even those who doubted you are left speechless. Go forward knowing this: you are covered, you are chosen, and you are unstoppable. Your rise isn't just survival, it's prophecy fulfilled, and your light, chosen one, will never be put out.